Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to this segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. The Sabad today, Rag Suhi, composition of the fourth Nanak, Guru Ram Das Ji. And this Sabad is actually more layered and nuanced than even Gurbani is otherwise. So the first stanza speaks about unmediated perception. Neech Jaat Har Japatia, uttam padavi paay, puchho bidar dasi sutay, kisan uttarya kar jis jaay. So Neech Jaat Har Japatia, the low caste. This is the literal rendering as a working translation. So Neech Jaat is one of low caste. Japatia, Japatia, who contemplates, who realizes the Har. Neech Jaat Har Japatia, uttama padavi paay, achieves the highest status. Pucho bidar dasi sutay, go ask Vidur, the son of a maidservant, kisan uttarya kar jis jaye, into whose house Krishna chose to enter, to alight. Now, as I said, there are nuances here. The Neech Jaat in Gurbani refers to the ego. And Uttam Padavi, the highest state, is really Nam. So what this is also saying is, so Vidur is the ego, the one that is separated. And Uttam Padavi is Nam. And it's called, among other things, is Jadam Padarth, Chauthi Padavi, Jivan Padavi. All of these are synonyms, and they all point to self-realization. So the Neech Jaat ego, the consciousness that is otherwise identified with its heavily social conditioned vessel. We are all conditioned by our environment, and that ego acts in that way. But it can undergo an immediate shift if it were to behold Japatya. Japat is to behold, to realize the cosmic reality, the Har. Then what happens is it realizes its supreme unconditioned nature, Uttam Padavi. That's the way we should look at it. And then Vidur is the ego that surrenders itself to the Har. And the Har becomes the Krishna in this motif who comes home. So Japatya is not simple vocal repetition. This is direct, thoughtless seeing. This is beholding the cosmic. So this is what can happen. And now to the Rahao. Har ki akath katha suno jan pai. Har ki akath katha suno jan pai. This is a calling out to siblings, pai, siblings of destiny. Listen to me, O siblings of destiny. Har ki akath katha suno. Listen to that narrative which is untellable. Now this is a bit of a paradox. Listen to that narrative which is untellable, but through which सहसा दुख पुख सब लह जाए. Sehsa. Sehsa in Gurbani equates to sansar. Sehsa eh sansar hai, mar jamme aaye jaye. And sehsa, which is ordinarily translated as doubt, actually it is identification with the body and the world, which is always paired in Gurbani with dukh, which is sorrow. The sorrow of existential angst. It is fear. Dukh and pukh. Pukh is what we called Trishna a couple of sabads ago. That fuel of hunger, that desire. So basically, sehsa is that existential delusion. We are islands cut off from the source. Second, the inevitable angst that arises, self-imposed exile, and pukh is ravenous hunger. It doesn't stop. So in other words, Japatia meaning you cannot think or vocalize your way out of this trap. You must listen to a katha, that wordless frequency of reality, that resonance of reality, where the internal monologue ceases and the entire matrix of suffering collapses because the false I, which was the suffering, has stepped out of the way. And stanza 2 and 3 that we are going to consider actually gives us two historical examples, one of Bhagat Ravidas and the other of Bhagat Namadev. But the beauty is the way these stanzas are layered and how there is a mystical, esoteric layer on top of the socio-historical layer. Ravidas, the cobbler, sang the praises of the Har. Ravidas chamar ustati kare har kirat. And what happened to him? Nimak ikagai. And in a single instant was transformed. Patat jaat uttam bhaya char varna pay pag aaye. And even socially, Ravidas attracted followers from all castes. Char varna pay pag aaye. Here the literal meaning is that. But the mystical side of this is the divine son Ravi is the source, and we all are the das. And we are all in the business of flesh and leather, chamar. So when we surrender, the body is flesh. When the ego reflects on its own source, it only takes a lightning fast fraction of a second, nimak ik, for the illusion density to snap. And patat jat, the degraded mortal identity, is instantly sublimated. And then the four foundational elements here, not the four castes, but we talked about char padarth, which was Gyan Padarth, Mukta Padarth, and then leading to Janam Padarth, Nam Padarth, right? That's what happens. This is really the manual on inner alchemy. Because after all, we are all universal chamars, leather workers, as long as our awareness is blocked into that heavy hide, cham, of physical embodiment and egoic identity. But embedded within this leather vessel is Ravi, the solar core of pure spirit. When this internal light praises its source, the shift is instantaneous. And now, stanza 3 with Namadev. Pay attention to the construction. Naam de preet lagi har seti, lok chipa kahe bulaye. The socio-historical fact is that Namadev, who fell in love with the Har, was transformed, but Khattari Brahman Pithade Shode Har Namadeo Liya Mukhalai, they turned their backs on him, the upper castes, and refused him entry into the temple. So what happens here, if you translate this out of this socio-historical context, when the being becomes Naam, Gurbani, and falls into a non-dual Preet with the infinite, then Lok means I. The witnessing eye perceives reality in an instantaneous flash. Chipa also means very quickly. Shipra, it means instantly, not just a calico dyer. So Namadev here is the being, the soul that has transitioned into the light of Namadev. Shirpa carries the etymological weight of an immediate, lightning fast transformation. Once you get there. And then in the fourth, Guru talks about the exhaustion of the ego and the dawn of Visbad. Jitne Bhagat Har Sevaka Mukh Atsat Tirath Tin Tilak Kadhaye Jan Nanak Tinko An Din Parse Je Kripa Kare Har Rai. Jitne Bhagat, all the devotees, Har Sevaka, who serve the Har, carry the blessings of the 68 holy places of pilgrimage on their foreheads, meaning they have attained what those pilgrimages offer. And the servant Nanak wishes to serve them day and night. So the ultimate paradox of human effort. The mind must try, study, wrestle with Gurbani until it is completely, quote-unquote, exhausted in a sense. Exhausted by its own strategic calculation. A vital prerequisite. As long as the ego thinks that it has one more plan to control its destiny, it will not yield. But when it hits an absolute wall of fatigue and drops, raises the flag of peace, surrenders, in other words, then that dry space is instantly flooded with Vismad, non-dual wonder. At this stage, you no longer run to external shrines because you carry the stillness of the universe within you. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.